County's Pine Hills neighborhood starting around 11 this morning.
Orange County deputies were on the scene of a deadly shooting on Silver Star Road near North Powers Drive in Pine Hills.
Many people living in Pine Hills say they are reeling from this tragedy.
Pine Hills sits in the northwest section of Orlando, and the statistics paint a brutal picture. This neighborhood earned its street name Crime Hills for a reason that becomes crystal clear when you look at the data. The violent crime rate here reaches approximately 3,500 incidents per 100,000 residents, which puts it dramatically above Orlando's average. To put that in perspective, your chances of becoming a victim of crime in Pine Hills stand at roughly 1 in 9, making it one of the most dangerous pockets in the entire city. The area stretches along Pine Hills Road, bounded by major thoroughfares that create a distinct geographical zone where crime concentrates. During nighttime hours, the risk multiplies significantly. Robberies, aggravated assaults, and shootings dominate the crime reports that flood local police precincts. What separates Pine Hills from other troubled neighborhoods is the consistency of violence. This isn't about occasional incidents. We're talking about a pattern that repeats week after week, month after month. Walk through Pine Hills at any hour and the physical evidence tells its own story. Bullet holes mark building facades. Businesses operate behind reinforced security glass and heavy metal doors. Surveillance cameras point in every direction from nearly every structure still operating. Many storefronts sit empty, shuttered, after owners decided the risk outweighed any potential profit. The few shops that remain open close well before sunset, a practical acknowledgement of what happens when darkness falls. The neighborhood ranks just below Mercy Drive, Orlando's most dangerous area. But that distinction offers little comfort to the 60,000 people living within Pine Hills boundaries. While Mercy Drive holds the grim title with a violent crime rate of 4,038 per 100,000 residents, Pine Hills follows close behind. Both neighborhoods share similar challenges, but Pine Hills covers a larger geographic area, meaning the danger spreads across more streets and affects more lives. The people here don't need statistics to understand the reality. They hear the gunshots, they see the crime scene tape, and they adjust their lives accordingly just to make it through another day. The economic collapse in Pine Hills didn't happen overnight, but the results are impossible to ignore. The median household income in this neighborhood sits around $25,000 annually, which falls roughly 50% below Florida's state average. That's not just a number on paper. That translates to families struggling to cover basic necessities while living in an area where danger lurks around every corner. The unemployment rate hovers significantly above both state and national averages, creating a situation where legitimate opportunities to earn money remain scarce for most residents. This economic vacuum didn't exist decades ago. Pine Hills once functioned as a working-class neighborhood where families could build decent lives. Manufacturing jobs, service industry positions, and small businesses provided pathways to stability. But as industries closed and businesses relocated to safer, more prosperous areas, those opportunities evaporated. What remained was a population with limited options and mounting desperation, the perfect breeding ground for illegal economies to take root. The education system reflects and reinforces these economic struggles. Schools in Pine Hills consistently underperform compared to institutions in wealthier Orlando neighborhoods. Teacher retention remains a constant problem. Resources are limited. After-school programs that might keep kids engaged and off the streets are either underfunded or non-existent. The dropout rate tells its own story, with many young people leaving school before graduation, seeing no clear connection between education and their future prospects in an economy that seems to have abandoned them entirely. Family structures have fractured under the weight of these pressures. A high percentage of households are headed by single parents, often mothers working multiple jobs just to keep food on the table and a roof overhead. Mass incarceration has removed fathers, brothers, and uncles from the community, leaving gaps where positive male role models should exist. Community centers that once served as gathering places and support networks have closed due to funding cuts. Churches still try to fill some of these voids, but they're fighting an uphill battle against overwhelming systemic forces that continue pushing Pine Hills further into crisis. The gang presence in Pine Hills operates like an alternative government, filling the power vacuum left by economic collapse and institutional abandonment. Multiple crews claim different sections of the neighborhood, with territorial boundaries as real and enforced as any official city limits. These aren't just groups of kids hanging out on corners. We're talking about organized criminal enterprises with hierarchies, rules, and business operations that generate serious money through illegal means. Blood and crip affiliations mark some of the major players. The local sets operate with significant autonomy. Territory disputes aren't abstract concepts here. They're matters of life and death. A wrong turn onto the wrong block, wearing the wrong colors, or simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time can trigger violence. The drug trade forms the economic backbone of gang operations. Pine Hills sits along distribution routes that move narcotics through Central Florida, and controlling even a small piece of that action means serious cash flow for whoever holds the territory. Recruitment starts young, sometimes as early as middle school. Kids growing up in Pine Hills see older teenagers and young adults with money, respect, and protection that comes from gang affiliation. When legitimate paths to success seem impossible or non-existent, the gang lifestyle offers an alternative. The initiation process varies by crew, but it typically involves proving loyalty through criminal acts. Once you're in, getting out becomes exponentially harder. Former members face retaliation, and in some cases, leaving is simply not an option the gang will accept. Violence serves multiple purposes in this ecosystem. It establishes territory, enforces discipline, settles disputes, and sends messages to rivals. Shootings in Pine Hills aren't random chaos. They follow patterns and logic understood by those involved. Retaliation begets counter-retaliation in cycles that can span years. The problem is that bullets don't discriminate. Innocent residents, children playing in yards, people just trying to get home from work, they all become potential victims when the shooting starts. That's the reality of life when gang activity dominates your neighborhood. The incidents that make headlines in Pine Hills follow a grim pattern. Drive-by shootings occur with disturbing regularity, often targeting specific individuals, but frequently hitting bystanders. One shooting might leave multiple victims wounded on a residential street in broad daylight. Another might happen outside a convenience store where families shop. The locations vary, but the violence remains constant. Local media reports these events. Residents share information through community networks, and the Orlando Police Department responds, but the cycle continues regardless. Children in Pine Hills grow up processing trauma that kids in safer neighborhoods never experience. They learn to recognize the sound of different firearms. They know to drop to the floor when shooting starts. Some have lost family members to violence. Others have witnessed shootings firsthand. The psychological impact of this constant exposure doesn't get captured in crime statistics, but it shapes every aspect of how these young people develop and view their world. Schools in the area deal with students carrying trauma that affects their ability to focus, learn, and plan for futures that feel uncertain at best. Several community activists and local leaders have attempted to create change in Pine Hills, often at great personal risk. They organize peace initiatives, mentor young people, and advocate for resources and programs that might offer alternatives to street life. Some have succeeded in pulling individual kids away from gang involvement or helping families access services, but these efforts operate at a scale far smaller than the problems they're trying to address. The people doing this work are often under-resourced, fighting against massive systemic issues with little institutional support, and sometimes facing threats from the very criminal elements they're working against. The Orlando Police Department maintains a presence in Pine Hills and has conducted various operations targeting gang activity and drug distribution. Officers face significant challenges working in an area where cooperation with law enforcement is limited, where witnesses fear retaliation, and where the problems run deeper than any police action can solve. Some operations result in arrests and seizures of drugs or weapons, but enforcement alone can't address the underlying conditions that make Pine Hills fertile ground for crime in the first place. Living in Pine Hills means constant adaptation to danger. Residents develop routines designed around risk management rather than convenience. Many people avoid being outside after dark entirely. Those who must travel at night stick to main roads where lighting exists and avoid shortcuts through areas known for gang activity. Parents create strict rules for their children about where they can go, when they must be home, and what to do if violence erupts nearby. These aren't paranoid precautions. They're practical survival strategies based on lived experience. The sound of gunfire becomes a regular part of the auditory landscape, especially during nighttime hours. Longtime residents develop the ability to distinguish between different types of weapons based on sound alone. They can estimate how far away shots were fired and whether the danger is immediate or several blocks away. This might seem like a specialized skill that shouldn't be necessary, but in Pine Hills, it's just another aspect of getting by. Children grow up understanding codes that kids in safer areas never need to learn. Their childhood shaped by circumstances they didn't choose and can't escape. The economic impact extends beyond just crime statistics. Property values in Pine Hills remain depressed compared to other Orlando neighborhoods. Homeowners who want to sell often struggle to find buyers willing to take on the risk. This creates a trap where people who could afford to leave, if they could sell their homes, find themselves stuck. Renters face landlords who neglect properties, knowing that options are limited for tenants. Insurance costs run higher for both homeowners and business owners, adding another financial burden to people already struggling economically. Yet moments of normalcy persist. Families still celebrate birthdays and holidays. Neighbors still help each other when needs arise. Small community events happen in churches or parks during daylight hours. People find ways to create joy and connection despite the circumstances surrounding them. This resilience doesn't erase the problems or justify the conditions, but it demonstrates something important about the human capacity to maintain dignity and community even in environments designed to break them down. The people of Pine Hills deserve better than what they've been given. Orlando's crime problem extends beyond just Pine Hills, though this neighborhood represents one of the most concentrated trouble spots. The city ranks among Florida's more dangerous urban areas when it comes to violent crime, though recent data shows some improvement. Between 2022 and 2023, Orlando saw a 10% reduction in violent crime overall, with shootings dropping by an impressive 30%. That sounds encouraging, until you realize that these improvements haven't been distributed evenly across the city. Wealthier neighborhoods with more resources saw significant gains, while areas like Pine Hills continue struggling with persistent violence. Mercy Drive holds the unfortunate distinction of being Orlando's most dangerous neighborhood, with that violent crime rate of 4,038 incidents per 100,000 residents we mentioned earlier. That's 369% higher than Orlando's average, giving residents a 1-in-8 chance of becoming crime victims. The area deals with similar gang issues as Pine Hills, including sex, money, murder, blood's presence, drive-by shootings, and drug trafficking operations. The median income in Mercy Drive sits even lower than Pine Hills at just $17,349, which is 63% below the national average. Poverty and crime feed each other in a cycle that proves incredibly difficult to break. Other neighborhoods round out Orlando's danger zones. New Malibu, Carver Shores, and Roosevelt Park all appear consistently on lists of the city's most troubled areas. What these neighborhoods share goes beyond just crime statistics. They all face similar combinations of economic distress, limited opportunities, failing infrastructure, and institutional neglect. The pattern isn't coincidental. It reflects decades of policy decisions, investment choices, and social forces that concentrated poverty and its associated problems into specific geographic areas while other parts of Orlando prospered. The impact ripples outward beyond these neighborhoods' boundaries. Crime in Pine Hills and similar areas affects Orlando's overall reputation and economic development. Tourism, which drives much of Central Florida's economy, suffers when the city gains a reputation for violence. Businesses hesitate to invest in or near troubled areas. Property values in adjacent neighborhoods feel downward pressure. The cost of policing these high crime zones stretches the city budget. Everyone in Orlando pays a price for the concentrated problems in neighborhoods like Pine Hills, even if they never set foot in these areas. Various initiatives have attempted to address Pine Hills' problems with mixed results at best. The Orlando Connect program distributed free doorbell cameras to residents, hoping that increased surveillance would deter crime and help solve cases. While some individual incidents have been captured on camera, the overall crime rate hasn't shifted dramatically. Video footage can help identify perpetrators after violence occurs, but it doesn't address the underlying reasons why people turn to crime in the first place. It's a technological band-aid on a wound that requires much deeper treatment. Other cities have successfully transformed troubled neighborhoods, offering potential models for what might work in Pine Hills. These success stories typically share common elements: sustained economic investment that creates legitimate job opportunities, educational programs that connect young people to pathways out of poverty, comprehensive violence interruption strategies that don't rely solely on policing, and community development initiatives that give residents ownership over their neighborhood's direction. The catch is that all of this requires sustained commitment over years or even decades, plus funding at levels that often prove politically difficult to secure. The hard question that hangs over Pine Hills is whether real change is actually possible, or if the damage has become irreversible. Transforming the neighborhood would require addressing interconnected problems simultaneously: economic development, education, family support, gang intervention, addiction treatment, mental health services, infrastructure improvement, and more. Each piece alone is insufficient. The investment needed runs into tens or hundreds of millions of dollars sustained over a long time horizon. That level of commitment challenges any city's budget and political will, especially when results wouldn't be immediate or easily quantifiable. So here's the reality. Pine Hills exists as a symptom of larger systemic failures, decades of decisions that concentrated poverty and abandoned entire communities to their fate. The people living there didn't create these conditions, but they bear the consequences every single day. Quick fixes and surface-level interventions won't cut it. Real solutions demand confronting uncomfortable truths about inequality, resource distribution, and our collective responsibility to each other. Until we're willing to make that kind of commitment, neighborhoods like Pine Hills will continue existing as dangerous zones where thousands of people try to survive circumstances that never should have been allowed to develop in the first place. That's not just Pine Hills' problem. It's a statement about what kind of society we've built and what we're willing to accept.